in a renewal of their traditional rivalry as they quest for the National League East lead. 1969, Black Cat in front of the Cubs dugout. Omen of doom. The Mets battle them for first. Pivotal September series. Jerry Koosman stifles the Cubs hitters in the first game. Tom Seaver mows down the Cubs in the second game. The offensive power comes from Don Clendenin. The Mets move into first the very next day. And on to their first pennant and World Series victory, 1973. The Mets and Cubs fight for first again. The final series of the season. The Mets, led by Tug McGraw, the irrepressible one, and his battle cry, "You gotta believe." The Mets close out the Cubs, win the title on October 1st. But last year, a different story. The Cubs get Rick Sutcliffe. He goes on to win the Cy Young Award. MVP Ryne Sandberg leads the Cubs' power-packed run-scoring machine to awesome numbers. August, the Cubs square off with the second-place Mets. Mets trail by only a half game, but the Mets lack the firepower. They come up short. The Mets get swept 4 straight. The Cubs go on to win their first divisional title. Tonight at the Big Shea, Cubs versus Mets, first time in 1985 as they continue their traditional rivalry. But Montreal in first, St. Louis in third to be reckoned with.
From New York, ABC Sports presents Monday Night Baseball. The Chicago Cubs taking on the New York Mets. And for the Cubs tonight, Cy Young winner Rick Sutcliffe, who comes in with a mark of 6-5 but a 2.11 ERA, pitching very well in the first year of a very lucrative 5-year contract. He'll be opposed by the Mets' second-year right-hander, the Hawaiian-born Yalie Ron Darling, with a mark of 5-1. And hello again, everyone. I'm Al Michaels. A look tonight at two clubs with some problems. The Chicago Cubs, after a 6-game winning streak, have now lost 5 in a row. The Mets have lost 4 in a row, 10 of their last 12, and both teams are trying to get healthy physically. The Mets are still without Darryl Strawberry on the disabled list. Their top reliever, Roger McDowell, has been unavailable for a week and a half, and he's out probably another week. And now Mookie Wilson's shoulder is bothering him, and he's not in the lineup tonight. The Cubs, meanwhile, will give the Mets no sympathy because they're minus Gary Matthews, still on the disabled list. And today they put Bob Dernier, their leadoff man, on the disabled list, and Darrin Jackson comes up from Double-A to make his Major League debut for Chicago in center field tonight. Well, the big story in baseball over the past week has been the return of Earl Weaver as the manager at Baltimore, and returning with us tonight is Howard Cosell. The coach talked with Earl earlier.
Earl, somebody give you a magic wand, unbeaten thus far in your return as manager.
I was very apprehensive, Howard, when the first inning of the first ball game I managed, Storm Davis gave up 3 runs, had the bases loaded, 2 out in the first inning. I had already said to myself, did I do the right thing? But things started to break. A lot of talent on the ball club. We've been hitting and scoring runs, and I've got some good pitching up to this time.
One question I've got to ask you. In view of the privacy between us, I won't name teams except for one. Why did you turn down George Steinbrenner and the Yankee job? You might have gotten even more money from him.
Well, I wasn't interested in money. Familiarity here with the personnel on the field, in the front office I've worked with. My stats are up to date. I have 6 coaches here that have either played for me and worked for, who I knew I'd get the right information from. As far as Mr. Steinbrenner's conversation with me, it never did progress to money, and all he was asking me is if I was interested in managing. It was over the phone. I told him no, and possibly if Mr. Williams would ask me over the phone in place of being face-to-face with him, I might have told him no.
You said, or were quoted as saying, you'd reassess at the end of the season. What does that mean?
Well, as you know, those aren't my words. I'd probably say I'd make up my mind at the end of the season. But I'm here probably as long as Mr. Williams wants me. The end of the season, we will sit down and evaluate what's happening. Maybe they won't want me, Howard, so we're just going to go and see what happens by the middle of October, and I'm going to wait for an offer.
Didn't you really come back with Baltimore, A, because of your relationship with Edward Bennett Williams, and B, because you believe this team can win the pennant?
Oh, definitely I believe they can win the pennant. And yes, on my retirement day and the day after the season, Mr. Williams told me that I had a lifetime job with the Orioles. Of course, I didn't want to do any work for him. And I was in the process of trying to get a consultant's job back, but I didn't want to work, so that's where we stood. But I had also told Mr. Williams, if you ever need me, and when I found out that the Etelbelli situation was going to happen, whether I was here or not, I had promised the man that if he needed me, I'd be back, and here I am.
So Weaver's back in Baltimore, but Palmer is still with us. Jim, did he bring the old magic back with him?
Well, he certainly did. He wasn't there on Thursday night. Cal Ripken Sr. managed the ball club. They scored 8 runs. He came back on Friday. They scored 8 runs. On Saturday, 7 runs, and then 9 on Sunday. They got good pitching. I thought that he'd come back if the opportunity presented itself. And the club was struggling. They weren't hitting. They weren't playing defense consistently, and they were pitching awful. He comes back, and he's kind of turned everything around.
He was gone 2.5 years. Are you surprised he's back?
Not really. I thought, if he had a chance to manage, he'd rather do it with the Orioles. As he said, they have a good ball club, as does Detroit, as does Boston, as does Toronto. And, I mean, the Red Sox have been playing really well. So it's going to be a good race all the way down the wire.
Can he manage without you?
We'll find out.
Won't we? All right, we'll turn our attention to the Cubs and the Mets on Monday Night Baseball next.
In left field, batting second, the great Ryne Sandberg at second base. Keith Moreland will be in the third spot playing right field. Leon Durham at first base, the cleanup man. Jody Davis, the hard-hitting catcher. And then Ron Cey, the old Dodger, at third base. Chris Spire will be at shortstop. And after Chris, the rookie who just reported, Darrin Jackson in center field. Rick Sutcliffe, Cy Young Award winner, the pitcher.
And for the Mets, who have taken the field, it's Hernandez, Backman, Santana, and Johnson. That's their normal infield, but the outfield with Foster in left, Heap in center with Wilson on the bench, and with Strawberry still on the DL. Clint Hurdle is in right. That is not a Gold Glove outfield. Gary Carter back of the plate. And there is Ron Darling, who came up at the tail end of the 1983 season for a look. Spent all of 84 with the club, 5-1, a 2.48 ERA. Ron Darling, just short of a degree at Yale. As you look at his numbers, only 77 hits in 94 2/3 innings. Ready to go to work on Davey Lopes, the Cubs' 39-year-old left fielder. In his first full season with Chicago, and this big 4-game series is underway with a strike. So many years with the Dodgers, then to the A's, then it looked like he was washed up. The Cubs picked him up as insurance last year, and this year he has been as valuable as any man on the club.
Well, he certainly is. He's a good leadoff man because he gets on. It's like throwing a double. Very rarely gets thrown out when he attempts to steal a base.
1 ball, 2 strikes to count. Darling would be the Mets' number 2 starting pitcher. Number 1, obviously, Dwight Gooden, having another great year, and then Darling back of him.
There we saw his good breaking ball. He has 2 curveballs. One he throws hard, one he throws a little bit softer, but I think the big pitch and the big reason he has become a lot better this year is, number 1, he has better control. Number 2, he's come up with the, seems like the pitch of the 80s, the split-fingered fastball. Gives him that changeup he can throw almost any time.
Crowd trying to coax a strikeout, and it's 2-2 on Lopes with Sandberg on deck, and then Keith Moreland. Ball, strike 3. Davey Lopes without a murmur to the plate umpire, Dana DeMuth, down on strike. 338 down the lines and 371 to the alleys. 410 to straightaway center at Shea Stadium before a big crowd on a warm night, temperature near 80 and humid and very still. Not a breath of a breeze, and the flag is limp in center field. Ryne Sandberg having his troubles this year, taking low, ball 1.
Had some injuries, as you know, in the early going. I'm not sure he's fully healed.
Pops it up, and it's an easy play for Wally Backman out on the grass. But here comes Hurdle, and it's Backman making the catch. 2 down.
1980. He was a freshman at Yale, that young man. Applied for admission into my course. I only took one freshman. It was a young lady who worked for us at the Olympic Games at ABC. Brilliant young lady, became a fine producer. So Ron didn't get in. He said, you took all the other jocks. I said, only 2.
So he went on to be a star.
He went on to be a major league player with the potential of becoming a star.
Just short of his BA degree in history.
He's going back there.
2 balls, no strikes. Right now, he's not thinking about history. He's thinking about turning the Mets around and trying to get them untracked again after spending the better part of the season in first place. They've been in a big tailspin. Strike. 2-1.
By the way, Earl Weaver got off to the big start. Baltimore's batting tonight in the bottom of the second, trailing, with McGregor pitching against Guidry 2-0. Yanks having gotten 2 in the first.
Stu Hopper down to the second baseman, and Wally Beckman throws out Moreland to retire the side. Ron Darling sets the Cubs down in order at Shea Stadium. And after a half, it's the Cubs nothing, and the Mets coming up.
For the Mets, Wally Backman leading off, batting second, Danny Heath. In the third slot, Keith Hernandez, a really fine hitter. In the cleanup spot, Gary Carter, who's had a hot bat lately. Clint Hurdle will be the next, batting fifth. George Foster batting sixth. And in the seventh slot, Hojo, they call him here, Howard Johnson. Then Rafael Santana, and finally, Ron Darling, the Yalie.
With Rick Sutcliffe pitching, here's the way the Cubs line up defensively. The infield of Leon Durham, Ryan Sandberg, Chris Spire, and Ron Shea. Davey Lopes has been all over this season, and tonight he gets the start in left with Darrin Jackson making his major league debut in center, and Keith Moreland in right. Jody Davis back of the plate. And on the mound is Rick Sutcliffe, who was sensational last year. He lost only once after the trade from Cleveland. This year he's 6-5, so if you just look at the record, you figure he's not pitching nearly as well. But interestingly, his ERA right now is better than it was at this point last year. Much better.
He's an awfully good pitcher. Has great fastball, good curveball, good slider, has a good changeup, takes a little bit off his fastball. What impresses me is that he is not afraid to go 3-2 and then make his pitch. Never gives in to the hitters. Got to battle them all the way.
And excellent control of all pitches.
He does not hurt himself. Last year in 3 victories over the Mets, he walked only 3 men. Backman, Heath, and Hernandez. The Mets are just not hitting at the top of the order, with Backman and Chapman alternating with Wilson of late. No production from the 1 and 2 spots. A strike here. Dana DeMuth is calling the balls and strikes. Doug Harvey at first, Frank Pulley at second, and Joe West at third. Outfield shading Backman toward left. Shea in on the grass at third. Up and away.
Wally only hitting .245 last year. He hit .280. They pitched him away. A lot of fastballs. He jumped all over him. Looks to me this year they've changed the way they're going to pitch him. A lot more breaking balls. Run the fastball in on him like they did just there, and then throw the breaking ball away.
Dave Concepcion had a 17-game hitting streak ended there. Pete Rose did not play today, but Atlee Hammaker sure did. A 4-hit shutout. Jeff Leonard hit a homer. Giants make it 3 straight, beat Cincinnati 4-0 at Candlestick.
It really turned around suddenly, beating San Diego a doubleheader yesterday, and now this, and Leonard carrying a hot bat.
Still getting great pitching and finally getting some hitting. In the air to right field. Moreland got a good break on it, but goes down, and Fields on a hop. He's able to save it from going behind him. Moreland is not a gazelle. He broke well on the ball, but he was playing quite deep for somebody with Backman's power, and had a long way to go.
Good curveball from Sutcliffe, but Backman stays with it, loops it into right. As you said, Moreland's playing deep, unusual. Backman's powers the other way. Right about here, he realizes if it gets by him, it's probably 3. Pretty lucky catch.
The batter is Danny Heath. If Sutcliffe has trouble, it's normally early. He's given up a lot of runs in the first inning this year. But on the other side, the Mets have not been scoring in the first inning. The Mets have scored in the first inning only twice in their last 29 games.
In the meantime, this kid has done a whale of a job substituting for Strawberry.
And he grounds it down to second. Should be 2. Sandberg to fire and a double play.
That was quick. Other scores now. We want to keep you abreast of these. Yankees leading 2-0. Baltimore still batting it. 3-0. Still batting in the second. Toronto and Milwaukee, zip, zip. Detroit leading Boston 1-0. Second. Minnesota and Kansas City 0-0.
Here, 2 out, no score. And Keith Hernandez hitting below his normal figure at this point in the season. You would think that Keith would be up around 300. But still, as far as the Mets are concerned, he's having a great year. The team is hitting just 230 collectively. Pirates leading Montreal. Atlanta has the early lead against Houston. Dodgers Padres underway, and we told you about the Giants and the Reds. Good breaking pitch.
We talked about Darryl Strawberry's absence, and if you're on the mound and you're pitching against the Mets, you're not going to give this guy a lot of good pitches to hit. Not when you have Carter, even though he can't hit the ball in the ballpark, but hasn't been hitting for a high average, and also George Foster's been slumping.
2 out and nobody on, and Sutcliffe quickly ahead 0-2 and works outside 1-2.
Davy Johnson. Got a sense of humor with it all. The man who made the last out in '69 on your team, Jim, against the Miracle Mets.
I think he also got the last hit that Sandy Koufax ever gave up back in '66 in the World Series.
What happened here on the Mets scoreboard, they had the Yankees leading 2-0, and the red light, which signifies which team is batting, had moved down to Baltimore, which is why I said 2-0. But now they've corrected it. The Yankees still batting, as we noted a moment ago, and leading 3-0.
There's also been a pitching change. Looks like Sammy Stewart's come in to relieve McGregor.
Hit foul. Something about that board, though. That board also has Detroit leading Boston right now 35-0.
It would be a good story.
Well, after last week.
After the Mets lost 26-7 last Tuesday. That defeat hurt Dave Johnson terribly.
To say nothing of the team's earned run average, which will be forever aberrational this year.
Nor their confidence. Went through that in Toronto one year. Elrod Hendricks ended up pitching, who was one of our catchers, pitching the last 2 innings.
That was another guy who pitched for you that night, too.
He was the best of the bunch that night. 2 scoreless innings.
2-2 pitch to Hernandez is low, and Davis starting off the field along with half the Cubs.
Well, as good a pitcher as Sutcliffe is, Hernandez has known 97 walks last year. Look him take that pitch right on the outside corner. Most hitters are heading back to the bench, strike 3. Umpire respects his eye. He's saying, what do you mean? It was about an inch low, inch outside. Pretty good pitch.
And DeMuth is getting some heat from the Cubs dugout. Jim Fry is up and pointing at him.
And of course, he's posturing. If Sutcliffe doesn't get that pitch, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for him tonight.
Hernandez hitting beneath his normal pace, but it's a long season. He'll be up there.
Still 3 balls, 2 strikes to count on Hernandez. A week and a half ago, great anticipation as you look at the way they defend Keith. Great anticipation for this series between the top 2 clubs. And it turns out to be a battle between the team in second and the team in fourth. With Montreal now leading and the Cubs second and the Cardinals ahead of the Mets. And Hernandez is on.
We talked about a good eye, and Sutcliffe not minding going 3-2. Good breaking ball just off the corner, but Hernandez is a little bit better. Takes it for ball 4.
Gary Carter has come alive at the plate. He had a good series in Montreal, and he's 12 for his last 25. But against Sutcliffe, only 2 for 16 lifetime. Sutcliffe, who no doubt feels he should be out of the inning, thinking he had Hernandez struck out on a 2-2 pitch, throws a fastball for a strike, 1-1.
Of course, look at the size of the man. He has every physical asset. You know, Jim, that helps so much. He's got a great disposition.
Well, he said what he likes
he's
about
pitching for Cleveland.
Exactly, and that's a good point, Howard. That is a good point, because I talked to him last year. He comes over, he wins 16 out of 17 decisions. I said, seems like you got your control back. He said, well, when you put up a touchdown, meaning about 7 runs every time you're out, and there you see an excellent pickoff, and they got him.
They get Hernandez, so the Mets have 2 of their first 3 men reach, and they go out 1-2-3 with a double play and a pickoff.
Now look at this.
Durham making the tag, and at the end of 1, no score. Leon Durham leads off for Chicago in the 2nd inning. Jody Davis and Ron Shea to follow against Ron Darling, who set the Cubs down in order in the 1st.
Leon's below his pace of a year ago, Jim. A year ago, though, his record seemed to me a little deceptive. He had 23 home runs, but 19 of them hit at Wrigley Field.
Well, it's always been characterized, and there we see the good curveball from Darling, as a good hitter's ballpark. In fact, a lot of the Cubs say when the wind blows out, you change your batting stroke. Start trying to hit those fly balls.
Take a guy like Cruz of Houston. Had no home runs in the Astrodome last year, but 12 on the road. So as a slugger on the road, he compared more than favorably to Leon Durham. It's not a knock at Leon. You want to take advantage of your home ballpark. But it does raise a question as to his efficiency on the road.
Keith Moreland, 16 home runs last year, 13 in Wrigley Field. But if you were out here for batting practice, even though batting practice is batting practice, he put on a show with the power.
And he's been blazing.
Durham has been hot, however, the week of June 10th to June 16th, as you can see.
Carter is also up on that list. What's ironic about that list of who's hot is that you've got 3 of the top 5, and both clubs have been staggering this week as Durham goes down.
I'll tell you who's really been hot is Guerrero of the Dodgers.
Homers in 4 straight games. Popped up in foul ground. Not a lot of room in foul territory here. And Johnson reaches in, makes the catch.
Pedro has 9 home runs this month. Ever since Lasorda took him off third base, he's become a new man.
Here you see Howard Johnson going right over the wall like you're supposed to. That way you can reach in. You don't have to jump in. Excellent catch. Once again at the wall. Reaching over. Fans kind of helping out. If the ball's in the stands, they can interfere. They just can't reach out into the playing field.
Jody Davis, the batter. Davis, along with Durham, has been hot of late. Missing inside, 1-0 the count.
Kind of like last year where he got off to a great start but caught a lot of games, and towards the end of the year just did not have the pop with the bat. Similar situation where the backup catcher is Steve Blake, not catching very much.
Into right center for a base hit. Hurdle gets it back in. That's the first Cubs hit. And the first Chicago base runner with 1 out in the 2nd inning and no score. And Ron Shea is the batter, the former Dodger. For many years, it was Garvey and Lopes and Russell and Shea, and Garvey at San Diego, and Russell's still there in L.A., but Shea and Lopes with the Cubs.
I'll always admire this man. He's very special. Still see, as if it were yesterday, the beating in '81 by Goose Gossage of the Yankees. And good Lord, they came east, and he was right back in the lineup and got 2 hits. Remarkable evidence of 1, courage, and 2, skill. And Zip Zimmer knows all about that kind of thing. Beamed in '53 by Jim Kirk at Columbus, and in '56 in Brooklyn by pitcher named Jeffco.
Little squibber up the third base line. They let it go foul. People only remember Shea, Howard, for that incident, but they forget that he was one of the tri-MVPs in that series.
Certainly was. That was the series. The Yankees won the first 2 games, went out there and thought they were going to sweep.
Game 4 was one of the wildest of all time. Sloppy.
I'm still looking for Jerry Mumford.
And Bobby Brown.
There's Mookie Wilson, not in the lineup today, injured.
Matter of fact, Davey Johnson talked about that.
And there was the kid who was the glue of the Miracle Mets, Harold. What a throwing arm he had. Remember, Jim? You should know.
I kind of like his lack of hitting expertise. He's really kind of a ping hitter, but did get the big hits for him.
Certainly did.
Davis at first base, 1 out. 2-1 to count on Ron Shea. Shea, who's averaged 23 homers over the past 12 years. It's a one-hopper that eats up Santana, and he drops it again. No play. Instead of a possible double play, runners at first and second. And they scored a hit. Do they really?
Well, the only way they can score this a hit is because of the sharpness of the ball, but it's hit right at Santana. A lot of topspin. Eats him up. Typical play. If you're going well, you make that play, you turn a double play, and you're out of the inning.
Yeah, but you can't score a hit.
Now we focus on one of the Cubs' big problems, the shortstop position. They started with a rookie. He got into all kinds of trouble, both in the field and at the bat. Pressure overtook him. They've sent him back to the minors. Now they're alternating between Spire, a much-traveled player, and Boa.
And Spire rips it to right field, backing up his hurdle and tagging is Davis, but he's going nowhere as Spire is gone. Sean Dunston, the rookie to whom Howard referred, back in the minors as Spire flies out for the second out. And now making his major league debut from Pittsfield, Massachusetts, where he was playing over the weekend in the AA Eastern League, to the big time at Shea, is Darrin Jackson. And he's up because Bob Dernier just went on the disabled list with a foot injury. So the Cubs are minus Gary Matthews and minus Bob Dernier, 2/3 of their outfield.
Why play this kid tonight when Lopes have been playing center field? It's simple. This kid runs like a deer. He can replace the speed of Dernier. Lopes can't. And Lopes, while he would dispute it, is probably more comfortable in left. At least manager Jim Fry thinks so. So the kid gets a shot upon arrival.
Strike. 1-1.
Tough pitcher to have to face first time around. You thought that pitch was outside, didn't you, Jim?
Well, again, you have to give Gary Carter some credit. And that's catcher. Just kind of had the glove right on the corner. Sometimes if you catch the ball properly, you'll get those pitches. Definitely looked outside, though.
1-1 pitch. Not only a tough pitcher, but what a way to make your debut. You're playing AA over the weekend, and then on Monday night, you're in front of a national television audience. 45,000 or so at Shea Stadium.
And Pittsfield's lovely in the summer. A lot of the Berkshires.
Big game for both teams.
Music Symphony will be coming along shortly.
That's where Mark Belanger, former Oriole shortstop's from.
That's right.
Strike 2, and it's 2-2.
Of course, a good way to get accepted by your teammates is to get a base hit right here. Judge for yourself, right on the outside corner.
Two delivery, low ball 3, and they send the runners now 3-2.
Pittsfield was in the old Eastern League when you were pitching for Elmira, and that was the best minor league, toughest minor league pitching in baseball.
Good pitchers league, big ballparks, dead ball, and ball didn't carry very well.
Davis and Shea are running, and the pitch is grounded to short. Santana throws over to first for the out. Guy is retired. No runs, 2 hits, 1 painted, 2 left, no score, end of 1.5.
Gary Carter at bat for the Mets. I asked him, as one of the leaders of this ball club, what he could do to help turn it around.
Well, I guess the best way to do it, Howard, is just go out there and set by example. Go out there and just play and continue to play as hard as possible. I think that's really the best way of doing it. Trying to be a cheerleader or giving the rah-rah is not really going to cut it. I think the best thing to do is just go out there and do the best you possibly can.
Okay, Mr. Michaels, you've got it.
Well, Carter's been trying to lead by example. He's been one of the few Mets who has had some success of late. And he was at the plate when Hernandez was picked off in the first inning. So the Mets got 2 of the 3 men who faced Sutcliffe aboard in the first with a double play and a pickoff. Wiped them out, and so Carter starts things in the bottom of the second inning. Pop foul. Back out of play. 0-1. Rick Sutcliffe came up with the Dodgers. He and Tommy Lasorda never saw eye to eye out there, and that precipitated the trade to Cleveland. And then on to Chicago. And then there was some talk, more than talk. There was a very good possibility that Sutcliffe, who was a free agent this winter, was going to leave. He's from the Kansas City area, and the Royals have made a great offer.
That's right. And his wife wanted him to take that offer. But no. You're an expert on Kansas City anyway.
You are too.
You know how to break up a fight.
No, I know how to duck, though, while you're breaking it up. 1 ball, 1 strike on Carter. Matter of fact, Sutcliffe asked his wife to list the 5 cities that he thought that she wanted him to play in.
She wrote Kansas City 5 times.
Each one of them. But he felt that there was some unfinished business, as he put it, in Chicago. Namely, they won the division, but not the playoffs. And you don't have to remind Sutcliffe, as he pitched Game 5 against San Diego.
He had a 3-0 lead, and he thought he had it well in hand, but it didn't turn out that way.
1-2.
Well, a change to the lineup originally given us. Foster is now on deck, and then Hurdle, which makes more sense.
Sutcliffe dropping down, but Carter hung in there. Lazy fly ball to Lopes in left field and put a 7 in the scorebook. 1 out in the second inning. And on ABC's Wide World of Sports, which comes your way at 4:30 Eastern and 3:30 Central, Donald Curry, the great welterweight champion, moves up to the junior middleweight class, a non-title fight, of course. Pablo Baez, his opponent. And also the U.S. Outdoor Track and Field Championships. Those are the elements that's coming Saturday on ABC's Wide World of Sports. Willie Banks set a world record yesterday in the triple jump. So
58 feet, 11.5 inches, and he finished 6th in L.A.
Yeah, such a disappointment in the Olympic Games, but he's turned it around, and that will be part of what you will see Saturday. George Foster, who's had a good amount of success against the Cubs in his career. He's hit .303 with 33 homers lifetime against Chicago. 1-0. Those are some of the numbers the Mets would like to start seeing from Foster. As they, I would think, Howard, have to have some doubts right now as to just when and if Foster is ever going to start turning it around.
I'm sure Frank Cashin does. And I'm sure that Nelson Doubleday and Fred Wilpon, the owners, do too. But he didn't have that bad a year last year at this stage of his career, Jim.
No, he had a great year. In fact, I was talking to Bill Robinson, the batting instructor, last year, 270 or 269, 24 home runs, 86 RBIs. He said if we could get that from him this year.
That's right.
But I think that's one thing as a general manager you sometimes have to wonder about. As a player gets a little bit older, will he be able to produce up to the same level as the year before?
Waves at a breaking ball, and it's 1-2. Sutcliffe, as you can see, last year, part of the reason he had twice as much support. 5.6 runs per game this year, 2.8.
And that's the story, because his manager thinks he's indeed pitching actually better this year, despite the won and lost record, than he did a year ago, up to this point. And remarkably, with a hole in his leg. I'll explain that as we go. He pulled a hamstring, you'll remember, in a game against Atlanta, beating out an attempted double play ball on him. And he felt something go. And he reached back to the hamstring area and could feel an actual hole there, which is still there. Ordinarily, he would have been out for 8 to 10 weeks, but he learned that he could pitch without pain, and remarkably, came back within 3 weeks. And now you see him, and he's retiring Foster on that easy fly to center field. Quite a guy, that Sutcliffe.
Darrin Jackson making the catch, so his first big league put out, takes care of Foster. And it brings up Hurdle. Clint Hurdle, who was Sports Illustrated's designated phenom a few years ago, when SI would always run somebody's picture on the cover in spring training.
They were calling him Hundo Hurdle in honor of Hundo Hardtime. You remember Clint Hardtime, don't you, Jim?
Yes.
He was a pinch runner in the final inning for the Giants on October 3rd, 1951.
Well, they thought that Hurdle would be relegated to a pinch runner. In fact, he was relegated to the minors, and he's worked his way back partially because he's a catcher. And he's able to back up Carter, even though he's in the outfield tonight. But he's made himself a valuable man to have on the bench. Whoa! And he gets nailed. I think it hit him on the shoulder.
Ball got away from Sutcliffe clearly. For a moment, Hurdle looked at him, maybe gloweringly, but the ball got away, period.
Well, part of his repertoire is to come inside, not that far inside. Got to establish the inside part of the plate, especially if you're going to run the ball away from hitters.
You could see in that picture the dismay of Sutcliffe at hitting him.
Of course, you never know if that's just because he put him on or if because he's really distressed.
I'll give him the benefit.
Howard Johnson is the batter. It doesn't take much, of course, for the crowd to get on Sutcliffe anyway tonight, especially in light of some of the quotes attributed to Rick. Ground ball, base hit for Johnson, and Hurdle round second. On his way to third, the throw goes into second. Howard Johnson coming in batting 176 with a base hit, runners at first and third. It was Sutcliffe now facing Santana. Story comes out today, and it got play in the afternoon post here. Sutcliffe quoted as saying that the Mets are not the team to beat in the East. He thinks the Cardinals and the Expos are better.
Yes, but I'm going to play my interview on that point with Sutcliffe, and he gives it quite a different slant. So you will learn directly from the man himself what his position is.
Meanwhile, all the crowd knows today is what they've read.
That's
so
correct.
They get all over him.
That's correct. But it's encouraging for the Mets brass to see Hojo come through. If he could start hitting, show some of the ability he showed at Detroit, they wouldn't feel so badly about that loss of Terrell.
Santana's been hot, has an 8-game hitting streak. That's a career high for him. 1-0.
Kind of hitter that just sprays the ball all over the place, but a lot of times that's what you take. He's done a pretty good job as a defensive shortstop this year.
Right now, he's surprising everybody with that slight hitting streak. 8 games, not so slight for a hitter like him.
Shatters his bat and hits a fly ball to left field. And Davey Lopes will put it away. No runs, a hit, 2 left. Still 0-0 as we go to the third.
Rick Sutcliffe, Al Michaels mentioned the quote attributed to him. Earlier, I spoke to Rick about it. Rick, tremendous furor tonight. A quote attributed to you out of Chicago. We are better at 8 positions than the Mets. They are no longer the team to beat in the National League East. A, did you say it? And if you did you mean it?
Well, first of all, anytime you come to New York, people are going to stir up a lot of controversy. What I did say was that I like our ball club. I wouldn't trade any of our players for any of theirs. I feel like we've got as good a ball club, if not better than they do. I did mention that they had a guy over here named Dwight Gooden that I'm sure we could find room for. It was said in a jokingly type manner, but you know when you get into a situation with the Cubs and the Mets that anything you say could and will be taken out of context at times.
All right, Al.
Well, letting his bat do the talking right now. He takes outside. And the count, 2 balls and no strikes. Balls and no strikes. The count on Sutcliffe, a good hitting pitcher. 223 career average, a couple of lifetime homers. 1 off Tom Seaver. 3-1. Sutcliffe, Lopes, and Sandberg. Dwight Gooden, whose turn comes up in this series. Boy, he didn't lose a tough one the other night. The Mets lost a tough one after he pitched well. Shallow fly ball to right field. And it's Hurdle making the catch for the out. 1 away, and Lopes is the batter. Yankees on top, 5-0 now. Bottom of the 3rd. Toronto trying to get on track after a lost weekend in Boston, and the Red Sox trailing Detroit, with Minnesota leading KC. National, Bucks lead. Houston, Atlanta tied. Padres trying to rebound after a doubleheader loss to the Giants yesterday, have the lead at LA. And Hammaker with a shutout as San Francisco blanks the Reds.
Weaver's got his work cut out from now.
Team is 3-0 under Earl, 1-0 under Cal Ripken the other night. 1-0 the count on Lopes. I love the honesty of Weaver, though. Originally, it was announced the other night he had a personal commitment and couldn't manage on Thursday, and then he admitted he was just at home studying so he could find out who some of the guys were they picked up on he was away.
Also, I think the interim manager, Cal Ripken Sr., who has managed when he has been out before because of either fines or suspensions, has a perfect unblemished record.
Have you seen Tommy John pitch this year?
No, I have not.
Next week we'll see Earl and Billy Martin at the stadium. Some of you will be seeing the White Sox against the Oakland A's.
Fouled away. Speaking of Tommy John, he's going to make his commentating debut next week on that Oakland Chicago
Maybe.
game. Unless he gets signed in the interim.
I got a hunch he may wind up pitching at Yankee Stadium.
Next Monday?
Might be in a relief role.
3-2 the count.
You think the Yankees are safe with 5 runs? You're crazy.
Actually, they need Bob Shirley on the mound. Get him squared away. Strike 3 called. Davey Lopes was on his way to first. Cubs, no love lost between the Chicago bench and Dana Demuth.
Well, we talked about how you want to throw strikes to Lopes. You don't want to go in 3-2. Darling does. You can judge for yourself. Looks like the ball might be a hair inside, but then again, it seems like the pitchers are getting the benefits of the doubt tonight. So you better go up there swinging.
2 down, and here is Sandberg looking at a strike. 0-1.
Struggling Ryan Sandberg, bearing little resemblance thus far this year to a year ago.
Good curve.
Well, I asked him, are they pitching you differently? And he said, well, hurt his stomach muscles or something underneath his sternum. Came back after missing a lot of time. He said it was just like going through spring training all over again.
I was watching the Cubs this week play several games on television. You can see on the outside pitch in particular, it's still bothering him. It has really affected his swing. So he is definitely not 100%. Looper to right field. Hurdle sprinting in, makes the catch on the run. So Clint, getting the start in the right tonight, already has 3 putouts, and the Cubs are gone in order. Ron Darling will start things for the Mets in the bottom of the third as you watch Hurdle coming on to take care of Sandberg. The Cubs and the Mets, no score after 2.5. There is
Darryl Strawberry, the missing man.
He's down in the dugout. He's on the disabled list, and he's picked up one of our audio loops, so he's monitoring the game.
Wife just gave birth to a baby boy named Darryl Jr.
Out in Los Angeles. Darryl, with finger count, how many weeks until you're back? With a shrug.
With a shrug.
0-1.
That's the Mets' highest paid scout.
Manager Davey Johnson says he's the key ingredient of this ball club. Jim Fry, who was his absolute mentor here, still predicts greatness for him.
Darling at the plate, and the count quickly, no balls and 2 strikes.
And you can see from the graphic a little higher average than most pitchers have.
This kid's good hitter.
Pretty well.
He's a good hitter.
Well, when Sutcliffe was up, he got a 3-1 fastball, had a home run swing. Darling
He's hit home runs.
Powers. Yes, he has.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Well, you run out of things to do when you're on the disabled list, so among other things, you look for those stray audio loops. Listen into the game. No doubt the Mets very hopeful to get him back into the lineup as soon as possible with a team batting average of .230.
Well, just 3 Mondays ago when we did the first Monday night game with the Mets and the Dodgers, Davey Johnson was talking and how about every bat he had this year until he was injured was a quality at bat. Fly balls were to the warning track, good swings, running out all the ground balls. Seems like he had finally matured.
Struck him out on a breaking pitch, and Darling becomes strikeout victim number 1 for Sutcliffe. Big crowd at Shea Stadium. Just seats in the upper regions of the upper deck are available. Everything else sold. First of a 4-game series. All the folks coming back tonight to welcome back the coach.
From Israel. Most remarkable experience of my life. Got to tell you a story about whom I bumped into at the Wailing Wall in the old city of Jerusalem.
I knew you'd be there. Backman with 1 out and the base is empty. Well, it wasn't Weaver, was it?
No, it wasn't Weaver, but you're getting close. This guy was once in Baltimore. I go to the Wailing Wall. Guy hits me on the back and says, "What are you doing here?" And I turn around, and it's Don Shula with Bob Greasy and Earl Morrow. Can't get away from the Dolphins even there. They're on the Love Boat, which the Miami Dolphins fans had chartered. A couple of days later, I'm in a restaurant. Guy comes running up to me, and he says, good pitch. Just came over from Athens. I was having my shoes shine in a shoe shine stand. A guy comes up and sits in the next chair. He says it was Don Shula.
2-1 pitch to Backman is taken for a strike, and the count is 2-2. Crowd is responding to a balloon being tossed about. That response to here has nothing to do with the game itself. And also a wave has started as well as Backman strikes out. So Sutcliffe waves goodbye to Backman.
Center fielder, Danny Heath.
2 down, and Danny Heath is the batter.
He worked Backman beautifully, Jim.
Well, he got behind him. Got behind him 2-0. Threw him a changeup for the first strike, then a breaking ball for the second one, and another breaking ball.
And in tight on and low.
Well, that's as I said. Not many pitchers can do that. Not many pitchers have enough confidence to pitch that way when they're behind the hitters. But not Rick Sutcliffe.
Danny Heath taking outside, ball 1.
It's an axiom in pitching that almost every pitch should have a purpose. Sometimes that's idle chatter. With Sutcliffe, you almost get the feeling that's exactly the way he's trying to pitch.
The problem is you can't always throw the ball where you want to.
No, but this guy right here does it more often than not.
bases empty. We're in the bottom of the third at Shea Stadium. Cubs and the Mets are scoreless. The way things look right now, even when Strawberry gets back into the lineup, he could see some action. Davey Johnson was talking about Mookie Wilson before the game. That shoulder acting up. That's the reason he's not in tonight, as Darryl Strawberry still listens in. But Wilson's shoulder is bothering him to the extent, as he takes ball 4, that Johnson is going to have a tough time getting Mookie into the lineup against right-handed pitching. And he's talking about, at least for the time being, platooning him and using him against only lefties so that Wilson can bat right-handed.
Well, what you'll probably see is Danny Heap go back to right field and Strawberry to center field. Much more an adept center fielder.
Hernandez drew a walk and then got picked off in the first inning. For a ball. The count. Hernandez always up among the league leaders in walks. He has 35 this year. Takes a strike, and the count is 1-1. The Mets, whose pitching carried them early on, ironically of late getting more offensive production, but the pitching's gone south. Especially the bullpen with the absence of Roger McDowell. Mets did a lot of hitting on Tuesday night, scored 7 runs. That figures to win you a lot of games. Instead, they lose by 19. Very much typifying their plight of late. One to Hernandez. Off-speed pitch is looped down the line. Curling foul, back out of play. 1-2. Cubs, meanwhile, come into tonight's game. 3.04 collective ERA. That's third in the league, and that's sensational for any Cubs team when you play half your games in Wrigley Field. If you can have an ERA of 3.04 and your number's 3, it's almost beyond belief. Because you know you're going to have your share of 15 to 11 games at Wrigley. They had an 11-10 just the other day. Time is called with a count 1-2 on Hernandez.
Kind of an unusual defensive alignment. Most of the teams in the National League play Keith Hernandez around to left field. They're kind of over in right center playing him to pull, which might indicate that they're maybe going to throw him a few more breaking balls.
2-2 the count.
There you see the fastball away, but Sutcliffe has a tendency to just waste pitches. There he wasted a fastball. Maybe he'll come back with a good curveball.
Notoriously slow working.
He also has the slow windup, which we saw the good pickoff move, and he needs that because when you're 6'7", and you want to keep guys from running, you have to get the ball to home plate as quickly as you can. It's very difficult to do when you have that kind of height.
You know who has a really great pickoff move? Ron Darling.
Certainly does.
Got 7 last year and 3 thus far this season.
Total of 10.
But it was Sutcliffe who picked off the only man tonight, getting Hernandez in the first inning. Ball 3. Again a 3-2 count on Hernandez. So Heath will be off and moving with a pitch from first base. Durham tells Sutcliffe to play behind him. No runs, 2 hits, and no errors for each team with 2 out. in the third. Three-two pitch coming up. Heap on the move. Strike three called, and he knows it. So he strikes out the side. Does Sutcliffe, getting Darling, Backman, and Hernandez, and leaving Heap at first base.
Again, a 3-2 count. Look at the slider.
No score. We go to the fourth.
This ABC Sports exclusive is being brought to you by Michelob Light. Super premium taste and a less filling beer. Who says you can't have it all?
We go to the fourth inning. Al Michaels, Howard Cosell, and Jim Palmer with you from Shea Stadium. Cubs and Mets. No score. Keith Moreland to lead things off in the fourth. Durham and Davis to follow against Ron Darling, who's allowed 2 hits, hasn't walked a man, and he struck out 2. 1-0 the count to Moreland. Davey Lopes, at the age of 39, very, very key man. Played all 3 outfield spots this year, and also third base for Chicago. Fouled away. Seems to have played everywhere but second, where he made his mark with the Dodgers. Cubs don't need any help at second, of course. It's Sandberg.
I tell you what I do like this.
Soon Darrin Jackson sitting next to him.
I liked it before they went those Mets.
Howard, Keith Moreland, a perfect example. 16 home runs last year, 13 at Wrigley Field. Takes advantage of the short porch. Reminds me a lot about like a guy like Lou Piniella I used to pitch against in the American League. Not a great outfielder, but makes the clutch play. Good average hitter, occasional power.
He really solidified the outfield last year after they picked up Matthews and Dernier. They sent Mel Hall away. Made Keith the everyday right fielder. He's a former catcher. Came up as a catcher with the Phillies. So many of the Cubs, of course, are former Phillies. Sandberg and Boa, Matthews and Dernier and Moreland. Then the former Dodgers and Shea and Lopes, former Cardinal in Durham. So they really built the team through trades.
Seems like most of them were with Philadelphia. Again, that's something to do with Dallas Green coming over. Knows the organization in Philadelphia quite well.
Straight back. Straight back at us, too.
You showing your athletic agility, diving out of the way. Howard sitting here coolly, calmly.
Howard was sitting here coolly lighting a cigar. That's why.
I have sat in a booth coolly before with Bob Uecker next to me as protection. Got sculled as a result.
Keith Moreland is on. So Moreland draws a walk in the fourth inning. Cubs have the leadoff man on. And Leon Durham is the batter.
Coming around to the plate, first baseman Leon Durham.
Leon Durham fouled out in the second inning. Durham comes in with a 9-game hitting streak.
A couple of key home runs, at least early in the playoffs last year. Talked about Pedro Carrero, 9 home runs this month after being moved from third base to the outfield. Here's a guy that feels more comfortable at first base.
That's where Lasorda has Pedro now, and he seems to love it at first.
Well, he's moved him around a couple times in center field. It was at first base on Saturday.
Tom says he'll never put him at third base again.
He confided in me. He said it's too close to home plate. Now, he doesn't know that first base is the same distance. It's just maybe they hit the ball a little bit harder.
Durham a hot weekend, even though the Cardinals swept that series. Token toss from Darling, who has an A move. count. All of a sudden, Darling, who'd had perfect control, has walked the man. And he's digging a hole here with a count 3-1. Jody Davis on deck. And the Cubs have runners at first and second with nobody out. 2 on and nobody out. And now Davis will be the batter, and Stottlemyre goes to the mound. Coming up tonight on ABC News Nightline are positions hardening in the hostage crisis. The latest from Beirut live. Ted Koppel talking with Henry Kissinger tonight and the former head of Israeli intelligence. Tonight on Nightline, following your late local news.
Odd coincidence. Saw Dr. Kissinger at lunch today. At that time, we didn't even know he was going on. You don't like to plug your own, I suppose, but Peter Jennings has just been utterly sensational in his reportage on the terrible crisis.
Rip down the line, foul, as after 2 walks, Jody Davis goes after the first pitch, and the count is 0-1.
Kind of talked about Ron Darling's problems last year. If anything, he needed to improve was control. Kind of an unusual pitching selection. Leadoff man, probably the most important batter a pitcher wants to constantly get out. Threw him a 3-2 curveball and missed, and got behind Durham and walked him too.
Now ahead quickly, 0-2 on Jody Davis.
Saw a little bit split-fingered fastball. Davis is hot, but he's also the type of guy that can get you right out of a jam, because if he hits a ground ball, he doesn't run that well. But that's somebody you're most likely to turn to.
Strike 2 pitch. Curve. That one almost came back in over the inside corner. And Davis backing away, 1-2.
Curveball, when you asked the umpire why wasn't it a strike, he said it just curved around the plate. Jody Davis pretty happy about that. Those are backup curveballs. Doesn't quite spin enough to come back across the plate.
And that one just misses.
Again, another emotional pitch. You walk 2 guys, you want the pitches that are a little bit off the plate, and you can see that ball's about 4 or 5 inches inside.
No question.
Of course, if the umpire wants to call it a strike, you're all for it.
Breaking ball, grounded to third, should be 2. Johnson over to Backman and over to Hernandez. On the play, Moreland goes to third. But the Cubs are taken out of what might have been a big inning. 2 out, runner at third. Yankees still leading 5-zip. Toronto and Milwaukee are scoreless. Tigers leading Boston. Minnesota leading Kansas City. Pirates over Montreal at Olympic Stadium with the Expos in first. Houston, Atlanta tied. 3rd inning, San Diego leading LA, and the Giants shutting out Cincy. Ron Shea, when you have 12 homers and 27 RBIs, it tells you something. Want to know? It tells you that you're hitting a lot of them with the bases empty.
I asked him about the low batting average, 224. He said it's the law of average. Sometimes you hit the ball well and you don't have much to show for it. He really feels he's hitting a little bit better than his average indicates. Again, I don't know how objective of a viewpoint that is.
I still get a kick out of looking at the Penguin. It's such an apt description.
Grounded foul over the head of the runner at third, Moreland. 2-1 the count. Chris Spire is on deck. Take a look at Moreland. Ball not hit that sharply.
Look at Chris Spire, and the question is raised: do you pitch around, say?
Well, if you're Ron Darling, you're saying, well, I don't want to give up this run because we're not scoring a whole lot of runs. On the other hand, Spire's been hitting pretty well. Good high fastball hitter. What happens if you do pitch around, say, and Spire hits a looping double down the right field line? Now you're trailing 2-0. I'd much rather
you're trailing 2-0.
Exactly.
But Penguins are tougher hitter than Spire.
There's no doubt about that.
Dangerous.
But I think what you have to do, and we saw last time he got a fastball kind of down in the middle of the plate. He hit it very hard. You have to either make your pitch or you do pitch around.
Remember the late Frank Lean's classic remark, Al, about say?
As he draws the walk.
I ain't gonna play no Penguin.
But Lasorda did, and he played him to a couple of pennants. 3, in fact. 4. Go back to 74, 74, 77, 78, 81. Chris Spire. Chris Spire is in his 15th season. Here's a guy who was released by 3 teams last year. He was released by Minnesota. He said he called every team this winter and got no takers until very late, just before spring training, when the Cubs said, come on down, we'll take a look at you. And then he didn't know he had the team made until the day before opening day, when down the screen said, you're on the team, you know. Chris says, no, I didn't, but thank you.
I'm looking for a looping double down the right field foul.
You may get it from Spire, too.
And against pitches like that.
Well, the umpire gave him the first one, and this is, we talked about his curveball. Here it is. When he gets it over, it's one of the best in the major leagues.
0-2. Crowd looking for the strikeout. 1-2. Spire, a rookie with the Giants in 71, then on to Montreal for a number of years. And last year on a shuttle, Montreal and St. Louis and Minnesota. Inside again, and Carter looks back at the Muse. 2-2.
Another curveball that just hangs inside. Again, you can see it's about 2 or 3 inches off the plate. I have to give Spire a lot of credit for not swinging at those. With 2 strikes and with the big strike zone that there is tonight, occasionally you'll chase that kind of pitch.
Still 2-2. Cubs threatening here in the 4th inning with Moreland at 3rd. Shea at 1st. Darling has walked 3 in the inning, but the Cubs haven't scored. Davis hit into a double play.
It's ready to hit to the right side was the key.
Well, he's trying to make contact. The one thing that bothers me if I was the Met pitching coach is that Darling's thrown a lot of pitches.
Runner goes from first. Carter bluffs the throw, then goes to third, and they have Moreland hung up. And he's tagged out. And you don't see that very much because the runner on third is normally more alert. But Moreland gets embarrassed by Carter, who bluffs the throw to second, and then they get him in a rundown, and the Cubs run themselves out of an inning.
That's true, and you don't see that, as you said, very much. A real old-time sucker play.
Carter throwing to Johnson, and back to Carter, who runs him back to Hojo. 2-5, 2-5, and that's the end of the inning for the Cubs. No score, middle of the 4th. Cubs nothing, Mets nothing. Bottom of the 4th inning at Shea Stadium. Gary Carter, George Foster, and Clint Hurdle facing Rick Sutcliffe. Carter flying to left his first trip. Sutcliffe starting him with a strike. 0-1.
What's more, he deprived Chris Spire of the double down the right field foul.
We'll never know.
One more pitch.
That's right. 3-2. Runners would have been at second and third. Definitely would have scored 2.
That's all right. Have your fun. You two have never been out there.
Oh, good Lord.
Honest question. Have you ever? Yes. Have you ever had anybody double off you down the right field line in the major leagues?
Yeah. Rockville Center in 1956.
Okay. Don't date yourself, Al.
0-1 pitch. 2-1.
Yeah, Hamilton beat Madison for the Brooklyn Titans off Harry Eisenstadt, who later pitched for Cleveland.
Heidi Abramowitz was a cheerleader. The deep left field.
That's gone.
And the Mets take the lead.
Jump on that.
Well, he certainly did. He talked about leading by example. Got a 2-1 fastball right out over the plate. Example of a long home run.
Sutcliffe got it up and right over the heart of that plate.
Gary Carter, his home run number 9. And he stays on. One of the few Mets who's really been hitting of late. Carter hitting the homer on the count 1-0 on Foster. That's in the air to deep left center field, but the rookie Jackson goes back and makes the catch on the warning track. So a 388-foot out as Gary Carter retools.
How do you get a team out of the doldrums? How do you lead them? By example. As Carter just did.
Clint Hurdle hit by a pitch in the second inning.
Even when this kid was failing with Kansas City, there were certain teams he hit well against. Let's look at his getting hit again. Ball inside. Got away from Sutcliffe. Hurdle always hit well against the Yankees, Jim.
Well, I pitched against Clint for a number of years, and I think the most difficult thing that he had to live up was that they thought he was going to be a power hitter. Here's a guy that's 6'3", good size, hitting in one of the most difficult parks in the major leagues to hit home runs in, and that is Kansas City, the new ballpark hitter. Occasional power, but basically, if you pitch him away, he's going to go that way. More of a line drive type hitter. I got a lot of credit for going back down to the minor leagues and learning how to catch.
2-1.
Well, if the Gamblers win Houston, they clinch a playoff spot in the USFL playoffs. They're well on their way to it. By the way, that gunslinger touchdown came on a 103-yard interception return.
Three balls and a strike on Hurdle, who takes high. Ball 4. Sutcliffe, uncharacteristically, has walked 3 and hit a man.
Here's third baseman.
On the subject of the USFL, our game for you this Sunday will be Birmingham at New Jersey.
Think Herschel Walker could make it in the National Football League?
Wouldn't bet against it. No question about that when he was at Georgia.
Oh,
You
they
knew
had
he'd be great.
Buck Bellew, Herschel Walker, and on a clear day, Lindsey Scott. Herschel Walker.
Johnson, it's a fly ball to center field. And
Crowd
Jackson
gets
makes the
excited
catch.
on those towering flies. The thing to do, of course, as Red Barber pointed out those many years ago, immediately glue your eyes upon the actions of the outfield, and you can tell whether or not it will be caught.
So Johnson is gone. 2 down. And Rafael Santana is the batter. By the way, the man that ran that interception back tonight was one Charles Armstead. A league record.
I remember San Diego-Cincinnati playoff game when Breeden, San Diego was marching. They were heavily favored to win. They wound up getting trounced, and the key was a Breeden interception for about 102 yards, which they didn't give him credit for at the time. I think they called it 99, but it was really 102.
Santana batting with 2 out. Hurdle at first base. 1-0 Mets in the 4th inning on Carter's homer.
We talked about Rick Sutcliffe's lack of control in the hits batsman. Billy Connors, pitching coach for the Cubs, said that's the one thing that the 2.5, 3 weeks have really affected Sutcliffe, his control.
Strike and the count 0-2.
Of course, it didn't right there. It's kind of amazing. You sit on the disabled list. Of course, he did do his wind up in a pool and did all kinds of exercises. And there you see the low and away slider. Come back and win your first ball game 1-0 going all 9 innings.
And initially they thought he might be out 6 to 8 weeks. It turned out to be 3 starts, 15 days.
With a hole in his leg that he can still feel. It's really an amazing story.
It's not uncommon for him to throw 160, 170 pitches. Most pitchers be out of gas by that time, but not Sutcliffe.
Looper, shallow right field, but Sandberg is back and makes the catch, and that's that for the Mets in the 4th inning. Gary Carter hits a home run, and that's accounted for all of the scoring before. Mets on top, 1-0, and we'll return with ABC's Monday Night Baseball after this message and news headlines from your local station.
Spire up, alternating at shortstop with Boa, Dunston, rookie sent back to the minors. I asked manager Fry how he's going to resolve the problem.
Well, we tried to resolve it in the spring, of course, with Sean Dunston, but the answer to that question was that he was just inexperienced. And when things got a little tough on him, he wasn't to the point in his career where he could handle it. It affected his defense and it affected his offense. So we thought it was better for him to go down. Now we're going between Boa and Spire, both veterans. Both have mileage, of course. I'm kind of going between them, depending on how they're swinging the bat, how the ball club's playing with them, and all of those kind of things. Here recently, Spire's been swinging the bat better than Boa, so he's been playing more.
And Chris at the plate, swinging and missing, and down he goes on strike. So he's 0 for 2 tonight.
Well, I'm still looking for the double down the right field foul line, aren't you?
At the plate, center fielder Darrin
running
Jackson.
themselves out of an inning with Spire at the plate in the 4th. Cubs are still looking for some offensive production out of the shortstop slot. Darrin Jackson, 2 hoppers, short hop by Johnson, fires to first to get him. So quickly, 2 gone in the 5th inning. As you watch Hojo again.
High hopper, he knows he has plenty of time. There's a short hop. Strong throw over to first. Mets very happy with his defensive play. It's the offense they're worried about.
Which was exactly
the opposite
reverse
of what they expected when the season started.
12 home runs, 50 RBIs for the Tigers last year. They did expect him to come over here and have a little more pop with his bat, except all those 12 home runs were from the left side, even though he is a switch hitter.
0-1 the count on Sutcliffe, who's flying to right in the 3rd inning.
We saw him get maybe his biggest against Toronto in a Monday night game. Remember, Jim?
Again, it's another illustration. There you see the low curveball for strike 2. If you're Davey Johnson, you're managing the Mets. You like the way Darling's pitching this inning. Walked 3 last inning. He's been ahead of the hitters. With the bullpen struggling, you don't want to have him throw any more pitches than he has to.
1-2. Bullpen struggling, is to put it mildly, with McDowell out. Sisk has just had a terrible year. Orozco, there's some question about his elbow. You'd like to see Darling go all the way. In fact, the other night, Davy Johnson was so strapped he had to leave Sid Fernandez in the game. The kid pitched a whale of a game and winds up losing.
Same thing on Friday night with Gooden. Thrown 147 pitches. They take him out. They bring in Sisk. Couple of walks. You bring in Orozco, you lose the ball game.
Back-to-back, very frustrating defeats. Grounded to the right side, and Darling will cover and accept Backman's throw, and that takes care of Sutcliffe and the Cubs. After 4.5, 1-0 Mets. A much-anticipated four-game series commencing, with the Cubs coming in second place, and the Mets in fourth, having lost 10 of the preceding 12. But leading tonight on the Mets 1-0 as Ron Darling leads off in the bottom of the fifth inning. Backman and Heap to follow against Rick Sutcliffe, only running the game on a Gary Carter home run in the fourth inning. Darling trying to bunt his way on, but Sutcliffe fields, and one pitcher throws out the other. One away, and Wally Backman is the batter, and we can tell you this telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball, may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League
Second
Baseball.
baseman, Wally Backman.
Backman singled, struck out. Wally hitting .248. Switch hitter, but he really rarely plays against left-handed pitching because Kelvin Chapman is the man who gets the start against southpaws normally. One out and the base is empty. Low, 1-0. Our vantage point. Palmer is the midget.
Of course, he has to sit on a stool.
The coach with a smelly cigar.
Not at all.
Not at all.
It's an excellent.
Easy for you to say. 2-0 the count. I mean, how does Emmy put up with that?
After 41 years, she's grown accustomed.
2-0 pitch is a strike.
Once again, you see the broad plate. Ball maybe a little bit outside, or at least Wally Backman thinks so.
2-2.
Al made the point early in the broadcast, early in the game, that they're not getting on base, the 1 and 2 hitters, and that stifled the Mets.
Well, as Davy Johnson said, you got to set the table. The table setters aren't getting on.
A base hit, and maybe more, as Backman takes a wide turn, thought about going to second, and holds on with a single. So with one out, a base hit, and Danny Heap will come up. He's hit into a double play and walk. Danny Heap batting in the number 2 spot. Again, if you joined us late, Mookie Wilson with an ailing shoulder, which is nothing new, but what's new is that he may be platooned for a while, in the sense that he may not play against right-handed pitching because that shoulder bothers him when he bats left-handed. So Heap and Hurdle are in the outfield tonight with Foster. A strike. Yankees now lead 8-0. Weaver may retire again. 1-0 Milwaukee. Tigers leading in the 8th. Minnesota leading Kansas City in the 5th.
Earl's got a problem tonight.
Looks like the miracle on 33rd Street might end, at least for a night.
Down the line, and there's nobody there. And into the corner, Davey Lopes will have to track it down. Backman rounding third. Here comes the relay from Spire, and it's dropped by Davis. 2-0.
Now that's exactly what you want from your 1 and 2 hitters. He was beautiful. He just went with that pitch. Backman gambled, came home, the play at the plate, and the ball going right through Jody Davis's legs. They had him otherwise.
Well, they did. A lot of people have faulted Bud Harrelson's third base coaching compared to Bobby Valentine, who's down in Texas now, and said he's not aggressive enough. There you see Wally Backman running all the way. Good throw by Lopes. Looks like a good throw by Spear, but it just short hops Davis. If he comes up with it, Backman's out at the plate.
It's funny, you start to get criticized for being too conservative, and the next thing you know, you wave a guy in, and you get lucky, as is the case there, because the throw is there in time. Hernandez. Ball one. 2-0 Mets now, with Heath at second, and 1 out of the 5th inning.
You mentioned Valentine. He's doing a very good job with Texas. They're playing about 500 ball under him. He was born to manage anyway. Lasorda's disciple, brought up as a Dodger.
Again, as Earl Weaver did down in Baltimore, he talked to people. They said that, and they told Bobby Valentine, good nucleus of a ball club down there. Pitching's a little bit shaky. Go down there and maybe you'll turn them around. And they do have a good nucleus of a ball club.
They thought they did a couple of years ago, too, with Doug Rader. It looked like Rader was the find of the century as a manager. Shows you how quickly things can turn the other way, though.
Won't happen with this kid. Take my word for it. He's well schooled. One of the best high school athletes, by the way, in the history of the state of Connecticut. Great, great football player.
2-1 the count. As Hernandez grounds it down to Durham, and the runner will advance, and that's the second out as Heath goes to third. And Gary Carter will be the batter.
Catcher, Gary Carter.
Gary Carter. Slide to left, homer to left. Nothing Mets.
Well, again, a situation where you talked about pitching around somebody earlier. Even though Carter's 2 for, I think, 18 lifetime, Sutcliffe knows you get a fastball in the middle of the plate, Carter can hit it a long way. This would be a time, 2 runs down, you make him hit your pitch or you walk him and get Foster out.
Absolutely.
Popped up. And he takes care of him on 1 pitch. Jody Davis makes the catch to retire the side. A run,
so
2
as
hits,
Jim said, he
left.
made him hit his pitch.
It's 2-0, and we'll be back after this from our local stations. Davey Lopes hit the last homer allowed by Jim Palmer. Palmer reminded him of that in the dugout before the game, and Lopes had forgotten.
Exactly. I had pitched, I think, 10 days before, and it came down to Kingman, who was going on his way to hitting about 35. I'd never thrown a grand slam. I had 2 guys on. I went 3-2 on Lopes, and I said, I am not, after 3,900 innings, going to throw a grand slam here. Hit it, and he did. Right into the bullpen.
That was the last of 303 homers.
300 at least.
Yeah.
Lopes tonight has struck out twice, both times looking. In the first inning, he knew it. In the third inning, he didn't believe it. 1-0 the count.
Carter tried to steal that for a strike. Did you see that?
Yeah. You were talking about Bobby Valentine. As I look at Lopes and Shea, I'm reminded of when the Dodger team was being formulated with Lopes and Shea and Russell and Buckner and Garvey and people like that. Valentine may have been the best of the lot.
Until he got hurt.
Before that, he got hurt in the minors. He was being in his last season in the minors, and that was the beginning of a succession of unbelievable injuries that did him in. Off the glove of Johnson, and Santana will run it down on the outfield grass. So Lopes is aboard on an infield single.
Up now, Brian Sandberg, struggling, as I said. I asked him if he was putting too much pressure on himself.
Well, I think early in the year I put too much pressure on myself. I was trying to do too much. I'm not a home run hitter, so I don't think I should go up there and think about hitting home runs. And early in the year I was trying to do that. And, you know, I was putting too much pressure on myself, and it's up to myself to stay within my capabilities, go out there and do what I can do to help the Cubs win, and just stay within myself.
So sometimes easier said than done. Strike called, and the count is 0-1.
What was it you said earlier in the telecast, Jim? It's sometimes the general manager has to not rely on an exceptional year going into the next year.
He had a fantastic year, but to have something like 37.
He called him safe at first to Doug Harvey, and then out. And Ron Darling, we talked about his pickoff move earlier.
Certainly did.
He showed you his A+ move right there.
Well, they call more box in the National League than they do in the American League. There's just a good move, quick. See for yourself. Looks like Hernandez has a glove right underneath his hand.
He didn't even touch the base. He touched Hernandez's glove. Beautiful athlete, Ron Darling. Just beautiful.
Also picking off one of the better base runners. Lopes is, I think, over the last 3 or 4 years, 60 stolen bases out of 66 attempts.
That's right.
So I heard him give a clinic at a junior high school, and you can tell, and once you hear a clinic, the way he told it, you can tell that this guy knows something about base running. Got it all figured out. A lot of guys just do it on speed. He does it both on speed and know-how. That's how you can be stealing bases at 39 years of age. Of course, there he just got outmaneuvered. As you said, a good athlete.
1 ball, 2 strikes on Sandberg, and a breaking ball is just low for ball 2. 2-2. That's Dick Ruthven. We were talking about all the ex-Phillies, and there's another. Ruthven is getting in some work between starts. He's in the rotation and pitched the other day against the Cards. And Sandberg goes down on strikes. Well, you can see it there. That injury still bothering him. I mean, you're seeing a lot of curveballs. And down he goes again. He's 0 for 3 tonight. So 2 down, Moreland to batter. We're going to watch Darling. One of the things Lopes might have been complaining about here is that Darling did not come to a complete stop.
Of course, the rule is you don't have to come to a stop if you go to first base. If you're going home, there has to be a pause of about a second.
That's right, but there's still a grave difference in the way National League and American League umpires call the balk rule.
You almost get the feeling over here, Howard, that sometimes they want to give the base runner and the hitters a little bit more advantage to maybe make a few more runs, a little more exciting baseball. Much easier to pick off runners in the American League. You can cheat, you can get away with the balk move. Over in the National League, you have to be more to the book. Matter of fact, Dwight Goodman, who I would think most people think his only weakness is not being able to hold runners on, a couple of weekends ago lost to Valenzuela. Didn't come to a pause. They called a balk. Turned out to be the winning run, at least the winning run that he gave up.
Strike call to Keith Moreland. 2 balls, 2 strikes to count. Kelvin Chapman, how are you?
Well, it's all right, Kelvin.
He's running that line from Strawberry. And that's platooning second baseman. 2-2 pitch. Up and in.
Oh, boy.
Jim Fry, who managed Kansas City to the American League pennant in 1980. And then got canned in 81. He looks on as the pitch is taken high by Moreland for ball 4. 4th walk given up by Darling. The other 3 came in the 4th inning.
And coming around to the plate, first baseman
Leon Durham comes up, fouled out, drew a walk. 9-game hitting streak.
Again, another example of the inexperience of Ron Darling. Having a great year, 5-1, but don't want to walk a guy when you have a home run hitter coming up like Durham, especially with a 2-run lead. You want to make him hit the ball.
One hopper to the Gold Glove Hernandez. Cubs done in the 6th. To the bottom of the 6th, 2-0 New York. Tommy O'Connell's been our high home cameraman here on ABC's Monday Night Baseball for years, and all of us express our deepest sympathy to Tommy on the passing this week of his mother. He is not here tonight. Hopefully we'll see Tommy back soon, but T.O., we want you to know we're thinking about you, and we grieve with you.
Amen.
Bottom of the 6th inning, George Foster hits a drive to right center field, and it's Moreland making the catch. 1 pitch,
Mets
1 out.
right fielder.
Hurdle is the batter.
Hurdle.
Rick Sutcliffe is saying, where are all those runs I got last year? Last ball game, 6 innings, 6 hits, lost 2-0. Pitched well, as he is doing tonight, but lack of support. It illustrates that even if you pitch well, you still need to have your team play well behind you. Last year, almost averaging 6 runs a game. This year, less than 3.
Sutcliffe beat the Pirates 1-0 since coming off the DL, then lost 2-0 in Montreal. And again, that non-supported existence tonight, trailing 2-0. 2-0 the count. Out in front is Hurdle.
Just amazing how he can get behind the hitters. And there was a situation we talked about Hurdle basically being a line drive hitter. 2-0, you think you'd look for a fastball, and he did. Threw him a little breaking ball. He was way out in front.
Back with a fastball, and now it's 3-1 on Hurdle. 1 out, and the base is empty. Bottom of the 6th inning. Mets on top, 2-0. Fastball for a strike. Hooking foul. Still 3-2. Again, to refresh, Montreal leading as you look at the scoring summary. Carter's home run made it 1-0, and then Backman's single and Heap's double made it 2-0. Montreal leading the Cubs by a game at the start of play tonight. Cards 2 back. Mets 3.5 behind. Got him. Ran it down and in on him. And Hurdle becomes strikeout victim number 4. 7th inning. Bucks lead Montreal 5-2. Houston leading Atlanta. San Diego 3, LA 1, 6th inning. San Francisco 4, Cincinnati nothing. And there are the scores in the American. Yankees bombing Baltimore. Milwaukee leading Toronto. 8th inning, Detroit 2, Boston 1. Minnesota leading KC. Ricky Henderson in that Yankee game is 4 for 4 with a walk. The sports news today, in case you missed it, Stan Albeck named the coach of the Chicago Bulls to work with Michael Jordan next year and company. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Not the worst assignment in the world.
NBA draft tomorrow. To the count. Cardinals are off today. Montreal trailing to the Cubs. Trailing here. Possible chance to move back into a tie for first if they can come from behind, assuming the Bucks hold on at Montreal. Still 2-2. Mets still trying to plug that hole at third. Ray Knight is their other third baseman. Went with Knight for a while and back to Johnson. Davy Johnson just having a tough time, all things considered, with the lack of production and the injuries coming upon a set lineup. And Johnson strikes out swinging. So Sutcliffe is really in gear. He's retired 5 straight. He has struck out 5. And we go to the 7th with the Mets leading 2-0. Shea Stadium in New York. Al Michaels, Howard Cosell, and Jim Palmer on Monday Night Baseball. Cubs are trailing. However, as you can see, they've won 6 games under like circumstances this year. That's the most by any club in the league. And it's Jody Davis to start things off against Ron Darling in the top of the 7th. Cubs attempting to snap a 5-game losing streak. Mets have dropped 4 straight.
He was the key man in spiking one apparent Cub rally in the 4th inning. 2-on.
Toward the hole, Santana has to take a convenient hop, and since Davis can't run, it turns into an easy out. 1 down.
A double play. Oh, our old friend Jim, George Frazier. With the Yankees, Cleveland.
Yes,
he doesn't want to be reminded.
Yes, 0-3 in the 1981 World Series. You were there. Santana to his right. Ball came up, stayed with it nicely. Knowing Jody Davis can't run. Chest high throw to Hernandez.
Had Jody hit to the right side, would have been a slightly different ball game in the 4th inning.
Here's Shea. I call that a convenient hop. Actually, in the replay, that was a relatively inconvenient hop and a decent play by Santana.
Of course, you got to give Ron Darling some credit back there in the 4th when he made an excellent curveball at Davis, and kind of hard to go to the right side when you make that kind of pitch.
There's Hernandez, who comes over to the tarp, but it's back into row 5.
It's an interesting thing when you talk to Jimmy Fry, and here's his team has lost 5 in a row. They're trailing 2-0 in the 7th inning. They talk about being aggressive. The 2 most aggressive guys, other than Ryan Sandberg, are on the disabled list. Bob Denier, 45 stolen bases. Their leadoff hitter, Gary Matthews, they talked about acquiring him last year because they call him the Sarge, the type of guy that not only leads by example, but in the locker room. And they're not able to play. Matthews, of course, with the arthroscopy on his knee, will be back possibly tomorrow. Doesn't want to rush it. Denier could be out for 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how his foot heals.
Meanwhile, Houston is pouring it on the gunslingers. I said earlier they can clinch the final playoff spot as we have another strikeout by Darling.
Strikeout number 5 now as Shea gets fooled, goes after a breaking ball away. New Jersey and Birmingham will be our USFL telecast this Sunday on ABC, coming your way from the Meadowlands. Get to keep all the trucks in the city this week. Sunday USFL, Monday Yankee Stadium. Baltimore and the Yankees, and Chicago and Oakland are our games. Ted Forty is accusing me of scheduling our production trucks.
Why not? You run everything else around here.
Do it on the count. I don't, but I think our partner might.
That's right. It's you, Coach.
Where's that truck going to be next week?
I don't know. As long as 40's in it.
To right field and deep, but it will stay in the park for Hurdle. Makes the catch at the edge of the warning track.
Spire was trying to come through finally for Jim.
3 up, 3 down at the end of 6 1/2. New York 2, Chi-Town nothing.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Donald Curry a terrific welterweight, great champion, in action live. His last outing was an aborted one as he took care of James Hard Rock Green in 2 rounds. And he'll be in action this Saturday on ABC's Wide World of Sports. Rafael Santana, the batter, looks to the strike, and the count is 0-1. Santana, Darling, and Backman.
It's not my dish anymore, but Curry is a potentially truly great fighter.
I enjoy watching him very much, and I guess down the line, as you look at McDowell in the bullpen, it's doubtful he can pitch. He has a tender ankle, but he's up testing it anyway. Someday maybe a Curry-McCrory battle for a unified welterweight title. Outside.
Milt or Steve?
Or what?
Milt or Steve?
Yeah. Stevie the amateur went pro. Milt is...
Steve's a good kid.
The WBC champion.
Gutsy little kid.
Looper hit foul, and the count is 2 balls and 2 strikes. Sutcliffe could be working his final inning. In fact, you can bank on it. He's due up second in the top of the 8th, and the Cubs are trailing 2-0.
He was talking about the DH. He said, first of all, if we had the DH in the National League, I wouldn't have pulled that hamstring. I wouldn't be having to try to beat out a double play. Secondly, you wouldn't see him leaving the game right here.
In the air to left field and right to Davy Lopes, who was an outfielder in the minors, and then the Dodgers converted him into a second baseman when he reached the big club.
Whitey Herzog's got an idea. He said if we had the DH in the National League, we could cut 2 players off the roster. The owners want to save money. Only need 23 players if we have.
Of course, he also talked about expanding from 26 to 32 teams, and then 1991, 1992, going back and voting to see if they want to keep the DH. Talked about the fact that Ted Simmons probably never would have left St. Louis.
He's a creative guy, White.
He also talked about Earl Weaver's plan to save a baseball strike. Never talked about what it was, but talked about his plan.
Good Lord, Boston Red Sox, red hot. Dwight Evans just hit a 2-run home run, top of the 9th, to go ahead of Detroit. He hit it off Willie Hernandez. 3-2, Boston now leading. That's a good story.
It's a great story. They look like they were over and out about 2 weeks ago.
Came into Baltimore, swept a weekend series, got well.
And then swept Toronto at home. Fly ball to right. And Moreland is there. Sutcliffe has retired 7 straight since the double by Heath in the 5th inning.
I think it's not a tough league. Dwight Evans last year, 32 home runs, about 94 RBIs. They want to bench him. Play Steve Lyons. They're 11-1 when he plays.
Well, Pittsburgh is giving it to first place Montreal. Houston has defeated Atlanta. San Diego continues to lead Los Angeles, and we've told you about the Hammaker shutout of Cincinnati throughout the night. Look at that. The Yanks bombing Baltimore. Milwaukee leading Toronto 2-0 now. We just filled you in on Dwight Evans, and the Twins are leading the Royals.
Here it's 2-0 Mets with 2 out on the bases empty in the bottom of the 7th, and a Wally Backman. 2 for 3. Ball 1.
Every time you think you have this game figured out, there's Milwaukee. They come in the bottom, or they give up 8, 7, and 9 runs. Now they're shutting out the league leaders, 2-0.
Been a tough week for Toronto. Lost last Monday to the Yanks, but then 1-2, but then 4 consecutive losses to the Sox. And with Steve on the mound tonight, their ace, they're trailing 2-0 in the 8th. Moose Haas.
Similar case here.
Milwaukee.
When he's right, Moose can do it, you know. He can get.
He can be a Haas. Three and the count.
Of course, if Sutcliffe walks Backman, we're going to set up a similar situation. Last time Backman singled. Excellent base runner. Heap's a good fastball hitter. When you have a guy on first that can run, you usually see more fastballs if you're the hitter. Heap doubled down the left field corner, scored Backman all the way from first. Doesn't want to let Backman get away here.
He did. Third time Wally's been on tonight. Four walks issued by Sutcliffe, and he's hit a batter as well. Heat with a double to drive and a run in the 5th inning.
Good situation for a pitch out here. Almost no Backman's going to run.
This is an intelligent hitter. He will go with the pitch. Can also hit inside out.
Runner goes, pitch in the dirt. Throw is a good one, but Davis had no chance. Backman got a real good jump on Sutcliffe, and then Jody had the problem of scooping it out as well, which he handles very adroitly, but no chance. About as good as you can do it.
Not a good pitch to throw a runner out on, but Backman doing what he did last year, which is to get on and then steal the bases. High percentage of steals. Under the circumstances, a much closer play than you would anticipate.
Backman with his 8th steal of the year. He's been caught 4 times. And a 1-0 pitch is inside for ball 2.
Even though Danny Heap is having a good year and has filled in admirably for Strawberry, Davey Johnson would rather have him sitting on the bench in some cases to use him late in the ball game. Key pinch hits. 2 years ago, hit 4 pinch hit home runs in one season. So can play that role and do it well.
High drive to right center field. Moreland goes all the way back and makes the catch at 371. So the Mets come up empty in the 7th. 2-0 New York. Jim Fry goes to his bench and inserts Thad Bosley as a pinch hitter for the rookie Darrin Jackson, who was making his major league debut tonight and had grounded out twice. So Bosley hitting in the 8th spot, and then Sutcliffe is due up next. Nobody is out on the on-deck circle at the moment. And then Davey Lopes. Ron Darling working on a gem. Goes a strike to Bosley. Darling loves to pitch in this park. He's 11-4 during his career here with a 2.60 ERA and 7-9 on the road.
It's an interesting point because it's not a great pitcher's park. Ball carries pretty well. Grass is fairly high in the infield, but Darling does not throw a lot of grounders.
Lee Smith up to start throwing in the bullpen as it's fouled back. Frazier had been up, getting in some work, but Smith is their main man. The only oddity would be that the Cubs are trailing right now. And Lee normally gets the call to preserve a lead. Tough to lead when you don't score, though.
It might be a case where even if they end up losing, Smith would only pitch 1 inning. Close enough. They're at a point after 5 straight losses. They can't afford Frazier, who's been inconsistent. Great arm, but not only inconsistent last year, but also this year, they want to go with their best. Kind of a wise decision. The unusual move is right here.
For a while, Frazier's earned run average this year was 12. He's gotten it down to
about
7
or 8. But Bosley here, I would have thought that they would have put Lopes in center, and Bosley, who's a more experienced hitter, might have started this ball game. Perfect situation, left-handed hitter. Bosley gets on base a lot, a little bit more power than he did when he first came up with the Angels. 90 stolen bases in the minor leagues, never been an adept base stealer in the major leagues.
Well, they opted for defense tonight with Jackson out there as Bosley goes down on strikes. I guess Jim Fry had to be figuring he's got Sutcliffe, so he went for the defense, and now he's got to go Instead of going to his bench, he's going to let Sutcliffe bat for himself. And we can tell you tonight on Nightline, the subject will be, of course, the hostage crisis. And the question, are positions hardening? The latest from Beirut Live, Ted Koppel talking with Henry Kissinger, and also the former head of Israeli intelligence on Nightline. Well, the one thing about being a good hitting pitcher is that you get up in a situation like this. And so it is Sutcliffe batting for himself and taking outside ball one.
Still an unusual move. Have to think that anybody you have who's a regular player is going to be able to get on. Also at this point, Sutcliffe throwing a lot of pitches as always. Going right into the heart of the Met lineup. Can't afford to give up any more runs.
If Bosley had reached, they probably would have gone to the bench and might have sent up somebody like a Richie Hebner and tried to tie the game with one swing. But instead, Frog is hopeful that Sutcliffe can get on, and then he's to the top of the order.
And then again, Bosley just got blown away by Darling. Figures maybe the pitcher has a better chance.
2-1 pitch is whacked into left and a base hit.
How do you like that?
Does his job by singling, and Lopes will come up. 2-0 Mets. Gary Carter hit a fourth-inning home run. In the fifth inning, Wally Backman singled. And as you see the summary, Danny Heath doubled, and the throw was there in time, but it short hopped Jody Davis at the plate, and Backman scored to make it 2-0. And speaking of unusual circumstances here, Sutcliffe bats for himself and comes out for a pinch runner because of that hamstring pull in Chico Walker. And that may be the first time I've ever seen that, where the pitcher hits in a spot where he normally wouldn't, gets on and comes out. So Davey Lopes has the tying run now. Has hit 5 home runs this season. 1-0.
He can go to right field for distance. Very effective.
The center, but not much distance. Heath making the catch. Walker, the former Red Sox outfielders, staying at first base, and Ryan Sandberg is the batter.
Well, manager Davey Johnson of the Mets talked about Darling not really being a power pitcher. This year he learned how to make the good pitches, get his curveball over, and there we see Davey Johnson. Kind of happy about what's going on, but Darling right there. Get an idea of how good a fastball he has. Right down the middle, a little bit of hop on it, fly ball to center.
Comebacker. Sandberg retires. But gone, no runs, a hit, leave one after 7.5. 2-0 Mets back in New York after this message and news headlines from your local station. George Frazier, 7.65 ERA. The Cubs' middle relief has basically been brutal this year, and it's reflected in Frazier's numbers. Jesse Orozco with that tender left elbow, and he's been lit up of late, is throwing in the New York bullpen. Though Darling appears in no need of aid as we go to the bottom of the 8th inning, and Keith Hernandez starts by lining one to Lopes, who has moved over to center, and he makes the catch. Bosley stays in the game in left field, and Lopes goes from left to center. 1 out of the 8th inning, and Gary Carter will come up.
We might note, Al, the Red Sox have defeated Detroit 3-2. Let's take a look in the meantime at Gary Carter's home run in an earlier inning for the first scorer for the Mets. This was in the 4th. Pitch was up and right over the center of the plate, as you could see.
Frazier starts him with a strike.
Houston with Nolan Ryan winning again. Defeated Atlanta 4-3.
Here it's 2-0 Mets with 1 out of the bottom of the 8th inning. Cubs in the 9th inning will have Moreland, Durham, Davis. 3, 4, and 5.
And I think the reason Jesse Orozco's up is if Darling does allow Moreland to reach, you'll probably see Orozco facing Leo Durham. Durham, great year last year, sat out against some left-handers early in the year and now playing regularly.
And the 0-2 pitch to Gary Carter is high. 1-2. Yankees 9-0. Ninth inning. Milwaukee leads Toronto. Red Sox we told you about. KC leading the Twins 6-3 in the 7th. Foul tip held by Davis. Carter has gone on strikes. 2 out of the 8th inning. And as Carter walks back, Foster comes up. National League. Bucks win, beat Montreal. Houston over Atlanta. Padres leading the Dodgers. And San Francisco a winner this afternoon over the Reds.
Cardinals idle today. Bucks victory. Mets victory. Mets move within 2.5.
1-0. This, by the way, strangely, in the middle of June, is the first meeting this season between the Mets and the Chicago Cubs. First of 18. Including 4 here this week. And then it's on to Chicago next week. Shea corrals it, and Frazier does the job. Keeps the Mets close. We'll go to the 9th. It remains 2-0 Mets. Back after this from our local station. Al Michaels, Howard Cosell, Jim Palmer, 9th inning. Ron Darling working on a 4-hit shutout. And he'll try to wade through the 3, 4, and 5 hitters here with Moreland, who's reached twice on 2 walks, and then Durham and Davis in the 9th inning. 2-0 Mets. To deep left center field. Foster racing back, and it's off the bottom of the fence. And it's a double for the leadoff man, Moreland, on the first pitch. So now,
look for Orozco
throwing in the bullpen, and the left-hand batter coming up. Let's see what Davey Johnson decides. Mel Stottlemyre, number 30, along with Davey.
Chicago.
Fastball up.
Leon Durham.
Inside part of the plate. Again, if you didn't have all the injuries, you may have put in a defensive replacement. Could hardly do that at this point. Blocker being on the disabled list. Ball over his head for the double.
Darling remaining in to face Durham. One thing, too, Johnson's got to look forward to is you got Davis and Shea, 2 righties up next. And the way Orozco's going, maybe he just rather have Darling take his chances with a left-hand batter and then hope he can get him.
I think you're right
about it.
Well, you're right, but if Orozco was like last year with 10 wins, 31
you know what
saves.
Davey told me? I know you spoke to him too, Jim. He said he's lost the zing on the slider that he had a year ago.
If you have a bad elbow, and there's been talk about that, and he did pitch very infrequently for about 10 days, the pitch that hurts your elbow the most usually is the slider.
Strike 2 on Durham.
Of course, my former manager and now manager back with the Orioles, Earl Weaver, said you can't get beat until you put 2 runners on. Good point there. Obviously, you don't want to give up the tying runs either.
Last thing the Mets need here is another frustrating loss. Glenn Wilson hit an 8th inning homer at Philly the other night. Then they lost 2 games in the Expos final at-bats Friday and Saturday. And they're nursing a 2-0 advantage here in the 9th with nobody out and Moreland at second. Oh, 2 on Bull Durham. And Carter will pay a visit.
Well, and the reason for this might be a little bit of indecision on Ron Darling's part. Looked like Gary wanted to establish the fastball with 2 strikes up and in. A couple of ways to go on Durham, as most left-handed hitters are. They're good low ball hitters. Watch the game that the Cubs played against Montreal on the weekend, and David Palmer has an excellent curveball, as does Ron Darling. Ate up Durham with a curveball, so he can go a couple of ways. almost get the feeling he wasted the fastball away and is going to come back with really one of his best pitches, the curveball.
Fly ball is center field where Wilson has come in defensively, and Mookie is able to make the catch. So one away as Durham skies out. Moreland remains at second. And Jody Davis is the batter. Our thanks to Alan Roth, numero uno in the business. Stats up here. Steve Hurt providing the graphics information for you. Jody Davis.
Durham had been a hot batter for the last week. They stopped him cold tonight. Now Jody. He's been a hot batter.
Again, the big out of the game. A couple of guys on, threw him a good curveball, had him ground into a double play.
Fastball over, 0-1.
The thing I like about Darling is he's such a fine athlete. A fine field.
Well, we saw a little bit of that.
Great
to bunt his way on.
Move. That's right. He can do everything. That's why this kid's got such a great future.
Curve. 0-2.
Fields his position superbly. And on top of it, he's got guts.
That he has. Looks like he's constantly trying to improve himself. Came up with a little split finger fastball. It's made him a better pitcher.
Curveball, he reaches for it and hits it foul in the seats. Still 0-2 on Davis as Darling seeks his 5th win in a row. He's pitched a shutout this year. He blanked the Pirates at Shea in April. He'd be 6-1 with a win, and the Mets would be 2.5 back. Cubs would stay a game back. Montreal on top. Cubs trying to avoid their 6th consecutive loss, and that would be their longest losing streak in almost 2 years. Breaking pitch hit foul. So throwing curves 0-2, one foul to the right side, the other pulled foul.
Yeah, another conference. Gary Carter saying, hey, we've got him out on curveballs all night. Maybe we better show him something else.
Pittsburgh has beaten Montreal 5-2. Yanks lead 10-0. Bottom of the 9th. Henderson, top of the 9th. They're still batting, I'm told. Henderson has gone 5 for 5. First such stint for him since he's been in the major leagues.
And again, Carter going to the mound. What is it here, Jim? Is it Carter thinking one way and Darling going the other?
Well, that's why they probably had a conference. But again, Jody Davis, good power, good enough hitter, and he's hot, as we saw the graphic, that if you keep with one pitch, you at least make him think.
Throws him a fastball inside to keep him honest.
Johnson nervous on the bench. He's seen too many get away recently, but he obviously doesn't trust that bullpen anymore, and with good reason.
Not without McDowell. Strike 3 on a fastball.
You don't think he's pumped up?
No, 1 to go.
Got to make the clutch pitch at the clutch time. Right on the outside corner.
You wonder if that wasn't all Carter going out there 3 times to one batter and saying, hey, you got to come in with a fastball.
Well, it just looked like what happened was Darling wasn't making the quality pitch with his curveball, and Carter might have gone out and reminded him of that.
I think the key to that was the line shot that was fouled to left field on the curve.
Ron Shea at the plate with 2 out. In the air to center field, and Mookie Wilson makes the catch.
gather around to congratulate Ron Darling. This is the way it presently is. Montreal losing to Pittsburgh 5-2. Still leads the Cubs by 1. The Cards idle, move to within a game and a half. And the Mets are now 2.5 behind in the National League East. So, Sutcliffe regrets his words. We'll be right back.